So we had a chance to speak to Balarama Holness, who you'll remember he ran back a couple of elections ago, right, against Valerie Plante. In fact, I think he credits the votes he got, or I guess the votes he took away from her opposition with getting her in. I think he's actually, one of those people who believes that had something to do with it, and that's okay. He started Bloc Montréal as a party, wanted to get a provincial party going. He basically announced this week he's gotten rid of both of those. He doesn't live here anymore, by the way. Toronto is where he lives now, but he still calls Montreal, home, though he doesn't live here. One of the points he made, and he was talking about in the article, in the op-ed that he wrote, he was talking about the floor crosser, Matt Genereux. But when I got him on that same morning, he talked about, listen, now that I've kind of decided to get out of politics and blow up the parties, I use that word, not him, that he had started, he said something that caught the interest of the person you're going to hear now. Balarama Holness suggested, what we need to do now with the threat of separation facing us? We need to coalesce around the provincial Liberals. In other words, all those other parties, whatever they happen to be, local parties that got together. And he specifically mentioned the Canadian Party of Quebec. He mentioned Colin Standish, who used to be their president. We had him on the air back in the day. Well, he's no longer the president. The new president is someone named Joseph Cianflone. And he heard the interview, or someone with the Canadian Party did, and heard Balarama saying, that party also should support the provincial Liberals and not try to get itself elected, because it's a dangerous time with separation, and we need to do this. We need to just have one party. In his case, the suggestion was the provincial Liberals, to protect us from that. Well, the Canadian Party of Quebec did not like that. I spoke to Joseph Cianflone a little earlier this afternoon and began by playing him the clip where Balarama Holness said, this is what you need to do. Here it is.
I think it's important to unify and have a broad coalition. And I feel that if the Liberal Party of Quebec is going to win next election, all smaller parties, including the one that Colin Standish launched, we need to come together to ensure that we don't go down the path of another referendum. I think it would be devastating for Quebec and for Montrealers.
So his missive there is for us to come together and suggesting, if you're looking at another party right now, he mentioned Bloc Montréal, which no longer exists, but its supporters to consider voting for the Liberal Party of Quebec. His message was to you, Mr. Cianflone, as well, as the leader of this party, that you do the same thing and consolidate those votes, and you take issue with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a lovely soundbite, but the truth is, it just shows a lack of understanding of what's going on, because unity is the issue, but it's impossible to unify this province under the provincial Liberal Party. I mean, there's just no way to do it. They've chosen that strategy for decades, right? They have, since Bourassa, decided to be more nationalist than our nationalists. And the truth is, communities outside the Francophone community have just been really, really behind in understanding the damage it's done to its brand and how it's run effectively as a marketing machine now. Strategic voting is highly non-strategic, and I think to understand that, all you have to do is look around Quebec today. We're on the verge of passing Bill 1, which is nothing short of an authoritarian constitution. With it, a couple sentences in any bill allow you to effectively override any concept of rights or respect for the voters, duty to them, something like a social contract. All of that is gone. This has happened during a time in a 50-year period where the Liberal Party has presided over being either the government or the official opposition. And regrettably, as much as pragmatists and opportunists like Balarama look at strategy as how can I maximize my position in this short-term window I'm thinking about, that's actually much more tactical and opportunistic than anything strategic. Now, I challenge any Liberal to think about what profitable federalism is and apply that model to a business partnership, a relationship with your spouse, a relationship with your kids, or really anyone, right? I mean, it's a parasitic version of trying to be part of a greater body. And what's so upsetting about that, and the lack of leadership the Liberals have had on this since Bourassa, is that Canada is Quebec's. We talk to Quebecers of all walks of life who are very aware that, Quebec was a key partner in founding Canada. For French language, a fact that's not debatable. But the nuance is that none of this is exclusionary. It's just an easy political force. So the truth is, where is the strategy? We are facing laws that are as bad as they can be. We are facing a third referendum threat. And quite frankly, the only response the provincial Liberals have is to dig deep into their political marketing machine and actually play to that fear. And then they call that strategic voting. But this is really just what a constrained opposition is. They usher in the next leg down by pretending that that's the way to unite people. And we just went through the experience at the Assemblée Nationale. Let me tell you, Simon-Jean Beret is pretty ready to quote why everything he's doing with the Constitution has been framed by the Liberal Party of Quebec. And it's there in all the testimonies. He goes back to Bourassa, he goes back to Anglade, he's not wrong. So we have to just, I think, accept our reality here, which is there is a good portion of all Quebecers who want to see something else but nationalism. And worse than that, all of these professional politicians and these political marketing machines that unite people behind nationalism are effectively just leaving loaded guns on every government desk we have. There is no unity behind our nationalists. Let's be clear. There is single issue emotive voting conditioned by this political messaging. And in the end, it's a bunch of rightists, leftists, some moderates, some Marxists, some communists, some fascists. There is no unity in that vote. So again, where is the strategy?
Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop because I want to bring up a couple of points. You pointed to Quebec political history here, specifically Liberal history. Some might say, okay, that was then, this is now. You have a brand new leader of this Liberal Party in Charles Milliard. Are you not heartened at least by that, or is this just more of the same as far as you're concerned?
That's the worst part of it, to be honest. When Charles Milliard lost the Liberal leadership race, the contested version that previously happened, I sent him a message right away, commiserating with him. I actually offered to him to lead the Canadian Party of Quebec, that if he really believed in the principles that people were projecting onto him, then do the job, and do it with a real start instead of an institution and a culture that doesn't understand how it's used for the opposite forces. His response was, very tactful and polite, but we now see the first thing he's done as leader of the Liberal Party was to raise the nationalism flag, make no mention of Canada, and the truth is that is what continually enables referendums. And Aaron, I know, we've talked in various contexts over the years. 3 years ago, we were banging the table about the referendum coming, and everyone is happy to point to polls that say there's only 20, 30% support. It's just a structural misunderstanding of what a referendum is. A referendum is an emotive, furied adventure, right, where people will be whipped up into emotion and not voting on anything practical or reasonable or even the impact of it. That shouldn't be, but that's what happens when there's no opposition to any of that school of thought. That's why the PQ knows what they're doing is a great strategy. They're going to force the PLQ to effectively be more and more nationalist. Then they'll pull back their referendum threat, win their election, and we'll see what happens. The cycle just continues.
Here's what I want to do, because we don't have the time. I have a limited amount of time here. I'd like to have you, because my next question would have obviously been, for people who hear what you say and perhaps like the idea, the chances of your party forming a government or even the opposition are pretty much slim. I was going to use the word or none. But I'd like to have you come on the show one day when we have more time and go ahead and tell people who are hearing this perhaps for the first time what it is you are proposing, not just what Absolutely. It is you don't think the Liberals can do. So can we do that?
We can. And Aaron, I'll give it to you in one sentence. It's very simple. After the last time we buried our head in the sands for a referendum, we passed something called the Clarity Act. Any responsible opposition to a referendum right now would be petitioning the federal government, as we've done, to invoke it, make sure we get the poll results as to what parts of Quebec actually want to separate from Canada, and make sure that we have a clear question for anyone who wants to ask a referendum question. Okay. That exercise in and of itself is critical, but it's something that provincial Liberals will never call for and therefore facilitate a referendum with. We need to actually stop the cycle because the damage is done, right? It's not about Anglophone communities and Francophone communities. It's about the economic darkness.
Okay, that's longer than a sentence, Joseph.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to leave it at that. And as I said, you'll have an open invitation to come on the show and talk more about the party because, as I said, I think for a lot of people this is brand new. So I look forward to that. I appreciate the time today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Aaron. And if I could leave you with anything, it's just don't fear a referendum. That's why we have the Clarity Act.
All right.
Let's actually unite.
Joseph, thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Cheers.
He is the new head of the Canadian Party of Quebec, taken over from Colin Standish. And I think to be fair, he has some interesting points. It's funny. I thought we taped that interview earlier in the afternoon, and I thought at the end of it, that'd have been a great fodder for the opposition to use against the Liberal Party, because it was all about the Liberal Party and the history of the Liberal Party and nothing about the CAQ or the PQ or anybody else. And in an upcoming referendum, you think there might want to be some talk about that. But anyway, we'll have him come in, as I said. I think the part of the problem, and it's always been the issue with the Canadian Party of Quebec, it's been around that for a few years. I don't think a lot of people still know who they are or what they do or what they stand for. So we'll have him in. Maybe he can better explain. Maybe this is a viable option for people. We'll see.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
Or the free iHeartRadio app.